Joe Herrera is on your left. Chris Taylor is on your right. It is Jund v. Burn, and for those who are unaware, Joseph Herrera, three-time SCG Tour Open champion.
Yeah, he knows how to cast a spell or two.
He's not too bad. We'll see how he does against the old Burn strategy. As Chris Taylor is on the play, he's going to start by sacrificing an Arid Mesa. And we are underway here this weekend in Charlotte. Craig, if you had to pick a favorite in this matchup, who would you pick?
Clearly, Chris is on the play here. I think that's pretty big in this matchup. Burn can often give Jund fits, especially if the Jund deck is not prepared for it with the sideboard.
Both players keeping 7. One thing to note, and take a look for Scavenging Ooze count. 2 weeks ago when we had Reed Duke playing Jund, he had 3 main deck copies of Scavenging Ooze. So does Joseph Herrera this weekend, so that could play a huge role in things.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. Obviously, the format is super diverse, so you're going to see some Burn, you're going to see some Affinity, you're going to see some of these decks. To me, Burn does not line up very well with the Death Shadow decks.
Okay.
So that's just a big red flag to me to not be playing that deck right now.
Here is a Lava Spike from Chris Taylor. You saw Rift Bolt off of suspend, so Herrera's already down to 14. Taylor's just going to pass the turn back. For Herrera's turn, he just played a Blackcleave Cliffs, maybe had Lightning Bolt at the ready, but did not have a discard spell to kick off his tournament. Looks like there may be a copy of Fatal Push in his hand, 4 main deck copies of that. That's a Wooded Foothills, and we're going to go back over to Chris Taylor, who is going to let another Burn spell fly. It's a Lightning Bolt. Joe Herrera off to a very slow start.
All right, Chris off to a pretty fast start. Just a flurry of Burn spells here. As long as he doesn't flood out on lands, you know, he's going to be able to close out this game before Joe can really establish a board presence.
He does have another land in hand, unfortunately, for Chris. He's got another copy of Arid Mesa. I think the last 2 cards are just 2 copies of Lightning Bolt. Herrera's going to fall down to 10, sacrifice that Wooded Foothills at the end of Taylor's turn. We'll see him search up some sort of Ravnica dual land here in just a moment. That'll enter the battlefield tapped. And then we'll see what his 3rd turn will yield. One thing right now for Chris Taylor, I'll say, though, is he doesn't really want to draw any creatures.
No, unless Joe taps out for something, the creatures at this point, they need to come down on turn 1 and to start having an impact. Although, to be fair, I mean, an Eidolon at this point,
not the worst.
Yeah, it would still burn a card out of Joe's hand. It would deal him a little bit of damage.
Here's Blackcleave Cliffs, and now there is Liliana of the Veil. One could argue Jund's most powerful card has arrived. It will go up. Taylor is going to discard an Arid Mesa. Herrera will discard a Fatal Push, and I think we're going to see some burn spells here in a minute. Yes, we will. 6 damage over to Joe Herrera. He's down to 4. Boros Charm will get the job done.
Yeah, this could be a quick one.
It's just an Arid Mesa here for Taylor. He'll pass the turn without playing that. A little surprising, perhaps.
Well, he already has 3 lands in play. He might be thinking that forcing his opponent to up the Lily is going to hurt Joe more than it's going to hurt him.
Fair enough. Joe does discard a copy of Bloodstained Mire, while Chris does discard that copy of Arid Mesa. Liliana up to 5, working her way towards her ultimate, as Herrera looks like he has a land to play. It's a Stomping Ground tapped. But what Joe has here, it appears, is just a very reactive hand.
Yeah, he probably kept a hand with a lot of removal.
Well, he tried to play a draw step Kolaghan's command, but Chris Taylor drew the perfect card in Boros Charm to deal the final 4, and that is going to do it here for this particular game. It's Chris Taylor going to get his tournament off to a nice start. Wins game number 1 here over Joseph Herrera. Burn very quickly up a game over Jund.
Yeah, that looked easy peasy for the man.
Yeah, I mean, no creatures, no Scavenging Ooze there for Joseph Herrera, no discard spell, no nothing. Gets him off to a very slow start, but now he's going to a sideboard very quickly, and you can see some of the options. Now, 4 Leyline of the Void, 3 Damnation, 3 Fulminator Mage, not so much. But 2 Collective Brutality, 2 Kitchen Finks, I like those. Don't really love the Anger of the Gods, but he's got at least 4 good cards.
Yeah, the Collective Brutality is just so versatile in this matchup. Sometimes you can discard 2 cards to get all 3 modes off of it, and then it's just a blowout.
That's too much to overcome, I think.
Yeah, that's usually backbreaking to the burn deck, and it's only 2 mana, so you can get that done real early in the game, too.
Kitchen Finks, of course, going to be good against Burn, so those 4 cards, pretty obvious there, Herrera. That's why you see him sideboarding so quickly here. For Chris Taylor, 4 Destructive Revelry, 2 Path to Exile, 2 Core Firewalker, 2 Ensnaring Bridge, 2 Deflecting Palm, 2 Exquisite Firecraft, don't see that one a ton, and then a singleton copy of Sudden Shock. He won game 1 pretty quickly. What do you think he needs to change?
I don't like a whole lot of changes out of Chris's deck. There's not real silver bullet cards that he needs to be answering in this matchup. You know, sometimes people like to bring in Ensnaring Bridge. Not super excited about an option like that. Maybe you want some deflecting palms. It depends how you feel about the matchup. It's pretty good against an early goif. But if I were Chris, it's very possible I just shuffle up, same 60 cards.
Submit the same 60, just go back to work?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Well, players are already shuffling. Looks like they're already done sideboarding, so we'll have game number 2 underway here in just a moment. But while we do wait, we're going to first talk about the StarCityGames.com a weekly sale, where, of course, once a week, we're getting you discounts this week. Until Monday at 10:59, you can get 15% off of thousands of non-English cards. Now, Craig, can you name those 4 cards? Can you?
We have Light from the Loam.
Correct.
Cabal Coffers.
Correct.
Swords to Plowshares.
Correct.
Some sort of thicket.
That is technically correct.
Is it oh shoot.
I believe in you. I want to believe.
I want to say Razor Verge thicket.
That is wrong.
But that does not sound right
That
to
is
me.
not.
No.
That is a firelit thicket, Craig.
Oh, man.
That is a firelit thicket.
How many thickets do we need in this world?
I'll tell you. 15% off of thousands of non-English cards. Go to StarCityGames.com/weekly sale for more information. New sale on Monday, 11 a.m. They're shuffling. They're getting ready. We're going to take a moment here to learn a little bit more about Joseph Herrera as he takes a look at his opening hand. Looks like Chris Taylor might be sending it back. But for Mr. Herrera, who is a 3-time SCG Tour Open champion, he loves Jund in Modern, I can tell you that much.
He does.
He's a big fan of that strategy. He's a former competitive Super Smash Brother Melee player, an aerospace engineer. Nick Miller would be very happy about that because Nick loves Super Smash Brothers. He was raised in El Salvador. 4 open top 8s, 3 open wins for the 30-year-old who resides right here in the Queen City. As we get ready here for game number 2.
we got to set up a match later.
Dude, Nick loves Super Smash Brothers.
He does.
He really does. It's pretty good, but it's a low variance game from what I've been told.
Okay, the better player.
The best person wins every time.
Yeah.
So I guess, the same 5 people win every tournament, more or less.
That's exciting.
Which, some people like that, some people don't. But variance is a good thing.
I mean, we have Brad Nelson, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing going on.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Not many people have been able to defeat Brad recently. Some people are certainly going to try this weekend. But, when we were watching the Cavs game yesterday at the local Buffalo Wild Wing.
Wait. What were we watching?
We were watching a Cavaliers victory.
Is that a hockey team?
That is not a hockey team. That is your defending NBA champions getting their first finals victory. Brad said that he took some time to test this week. Really big of him. Really.
That's what's so funny. He's like, now that I won 2 tournaments in a row, I can start to get serious.
I decided to buckle down and really stop fooling around here. So I know, we're going to go through the formalities of playing all these rounds, but perhaps we should just give Brad the trophy now.
All right, looks like Joe's taking a couple mulligans here.
Yeah, he's going to scry to the bottom. So he's found a hand he's happy enough with as game number 2 is underway. It's a Verdant Catacombs for Herrera. He'll pass the turn back for Chris Taylor. Inspiring Vantage, Goblin Guide, Trigger, Swamp to the grip.
Free cards.
Gotta love a free card. Gotta love a free card. Herrera's going to sacrifice that fetch line. Perhaps he has a Lightning Bolt or a Fatal Push to take care of the Goblin Guide. And right now, Herrera playing 4 Fatal Push, Lightning Bolt. Oh, no.
Boltless.
He's boltless?
Welcome to the format, my friend.
He's a wild dude.
Listen, if you want to beat Death Shadow, if you want to beat Tarmogoyfs.
Yeah, that's true.
Lightning Bolt does not get the job done.
Are we at the place where Lightning Bolt's not very good in Modern?
It's kind of crazy.
That is wild. Stomping Ground tapped here from Joe Herrera. He'll pass the turn. Chris Taylor will pick up a copy of Lightning Helix. What do we have here? It's another copy of Goblin Guide. In there, Trigger, Verdant Catacombs to grip. What mulligan?
Free cards!
Yeah, that mulligan's basically undone. Thanks, Goblin Guide. Herrera down to 17. Tarmogoyf the draw.
You know what's good with 3 cards?
Do tell.
A little Collective Brutality would be good with 3 cards.
That'll work just fine. Tarmogoyf's not too bad either. 3-4 at this stage with a creature, an instant, and a land in the graveyard. Overgrown 2-miners, the battlefield tapped. Herrera will pass the turn back over to Chris Taylor. Taylor will untap and draw. He's picked up a copy of Lightning Bolt. What he has not found unfortunately for him, is the second land, but this does kind of demonstrate your point. Lightning Bolt right now, pretty stinky.
Yeah.
Lava Spike may not be better than Lightning Bolt.
Well, we call Lightning Bolt pretty stinky. Still goes to the dome for 3.
True,
Yeah.
true. Herrera going to fall down to 14 from the Spikerino. Back to Joe we're going to go.
Yeah, and if Joe doesn't have another body to put on the board here, Chris is going to be very happy to just trade points back and forth with him. You know, I don't think Joe can attack at all with that Goyf.
Yeah, you don't want to take that damage from the Goblin Guide right now. You fall to 12, that's an increment of 3. It's a place that Burn wants to be. Herrera started off by playing a Verdant Catacombs. Now he's thinking about playing something. Well, this is telling. If he's getting in here with the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, he's clearly going to either be killing that Goblin Guide or playing another fatty.
Tarmogoyf will deal 4. Taylor will fall down to 16. Joe's going to sacrifice Verdant Catacombs. Fall down to at least 13. We'll see if he goes any lower than that. He has 2 swamps and a forest for basic lands here this weekend.
Forest it is.
Yeah. I would say that, taking a look at Joe's deck list, red is more of a splash this weekend.
Yeah, he's gotten some interesting ones here in Hazaret the Fervent.
Yeah?
That's not one you normally see. I'm a little surprised to see it. It seems very good with Liliana, not very good with Dark Confidant.
Yeah, 2 copies of Hazaret and then Terminate and Cold Gun's Command are basically the red cards that Joe's working with this weekend. There's Fulminator Mage from the sideboard. Well, timely. Fairly timely.
It will have an impact here.
I'm kind of for blowing up that land. Like, you know, he wants to probably block and trade.
Yeah, Joe a little greedy here.
Looks like Ensnaring Bridge may have been the draw. I'm a little surprised to see that in. Between that and the Deflecting Palm, Chris Taylor has obviously sideboarded in quite a few cards here.
Yeah, and sometimes these decks like deciding the path to exile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, you don't want to be caught over sideboarding where you just can't finish your opponent off with the last couple points of burn.
Let's see what this is. Another Lava Spike. Herrera's going to fall down to 10. And Taylor's going to pass the turn back. No attacks here.
I really like not attacking there. I
Same.
mean, Joe's play is just too easy to block and blow up the land.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gives him a shot at another free draw step with the land on top of his deck.
Yeah. Creatures are coming. Going to jump in front of Tarmogoyf this time, old Goblin Guide. So Taylor's going to take 2. He's going to fall down to 14.
It looks like Chris is doing everything he can to keep that Fulminator Mage on the board.
This is a Scavenging Ooze, and that might be a little too much to overcome.
Yeah, this is a big problem now.
These 2 Goblin Guides are going to be exiled, which means Ooze is going to immediately turn into a 4/4. Fulminator Mage is going to take care of the Inspiring Vantage, and more importantly, Joseph Herrera is up to 12 life. Taylor will draw. He's picked up another non-land card. And
very clean board for Taylor here.
We'll be getting ready for game number 3 here in just a moment. Very clean, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's Liliana. Joe's already taken care of all the permanents. Now he's going after Chris's hand.
Yeah.
Looking for perhaps a flawless victory.
Yeah, the perfect
yes.
here.
Discards and Snaring Bridge. Now, all kidding aside, how do you feel about that discard?
If Chris wants to keep it in for game 3, which maybe he doesn't, when he's on the play, maybe it comes back out.
Okay.
If he's going to take it back out, I can see showing it to Joe here.
Okay.
And being like, let me trick him, let me think he has to play around this. Maybe he sideboards a little different. But if you're going to leave that in your deck, I would never discard it there.
Yeah. You're giving away a little bit of information there as Chris Taylor's, as Joseph Herrera is going to win game number 2. Jund and Burn getting ready for a 3rd and final one here to kick things off. Now, I'm going to watch Chris a little bit here. One of the things I enjoy doing. See if he is going to go back to the drawing board at all, because he did discard that Ensnaring Bridge. And I think he may have over-sideboarded a little bit for game 2.
That's easy to say with the way the game played out.
Sure.
Like, you know, he only had 1 land. Who knows how that game would have played out if he was able to cast the Deflecting Palm, if he was able to cast the Ensnaring Bridge. Mm-hmm. Maybe he would have just looked like he was in the driver's seat at that point.
Very true.
So, tough to say. I tend to agree with you. but I also don't like to be too results-oriented, where we see this, and then we just immediately pass judgment on the situation.
Totally reasonable. Totally reasonable. And you do see both players are going back to the drawing board a little bit here. Now, you take a look at Joe's sideboard again. The collective brutalities, the collective brutalities and kitchen finks are obvious. I didn't expect him to bring in Fulminator Mage, but he has brought in at least one copy, so maybe that changes.
A lot of times that's a result of having so many cards that you want to take out for the matchup. It's possible he thinks on the play, turn 3 blowing up a land is going to be huge. On the draw, he might be too far behind to make a play like that.
Sure.
But I mean, he probably took out some terminates here. He has so much removal, and his opponent doesn't have that many creatures. He definitely doesn't want to play Thoughtseize. Hazoret seems pretty mediocre in this matchup. So it's possible he just has too many cards that he wants to take out for the matchup.
And Chris Taylor has done a little bit of sideboarding, and they are shuffling up. So game number 2 about to be underway here. Burn will be on the play as Chris has presented his deck. In the meantime, you saw Tarmogoyf in that game, which makes for a clean segue.
The Tarmo-Die.
Yes, not to be confused with the Tarmody.
The Tarmody.
Which is something that's in development for CK Industries.
Yep.
That's Craig Krempel's Industries, for those of you wondering at home. But for Tarmo-Die, you get to keep track of your creatures' power and toughness in style. Single dice and sets of 4 available now. Go.starcitygames.com/Tarmo-Die, or if you ever come to one of our SCG Tour open weekends, like here in Charlotte, or perhaps at Invitational a couple weeks from now, you can pick some up there. Again, go to starcitygames.com/Tarmo-Die for more information. Game number 3 about to be underway between Herrera and Taylor. Burn, Jund, Modern, yes.
I see an impending collision between the Tarmo-Die and the Tarmody.
I do too. But maybe they could team up.
Yeah, well, the problem is also just in the naming. You know?
Yeah.
This is going to have to be resolved.
Yeah. Someone's going to win this war. It sounds like a very long legal battle.
Well, I mean, I can tell you CK Industries is lawyered up. We're ready for this.
That's good. That's good. You've got your representation.
But we're going to fight for our intellectual property.
That's very smart. Looks like Herrera might be good to go. Not too sure as these players. Looks like they're both happy with their 7. All right, game number 3. It's a Sacred Foundry untapped. Taylor immediately down to 18, and so is Herrera, because here comes Goblin Guy. Trigger, Inquisition of Kozilek. Finally, we're going to see some discard here from Joe.
Yeah, an early spell is definitely what he needs, especially off of this start by Chris.
Let's see what the land is going to be here, though. It is going to be a Blackleaf Cliffs, and there is the Inquisition, so we'll get an idea of what Taylor is working with. I see a Monastery Swift Spear. Not Joe's first time on camera. Thank you, Joe. Lightning Helix, Lightning Bolt, Lava Spike, and another copy of Sacred Foundry.
Yeah, what Joe takes here is going to be very dependent on what his hand looks like. I'd be definitely leaning towards the Monastery Swift Spear. This hand just lines up so well for him to go Swift Spear and 1 mana spell.
Yep.
And then next turn, potentially 2 1-mana spells or 1 mana, 2-mana spell. So you don't want to let the creatures do a lot of damage to you. Yep, Swift Spear down.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Don't have a great look at Herrera's hand right now, but that selection seems fairly straightforward as Bloodstained Mire. The draw here for Chris Taylor. Looks like he's going to play another Sacred Foundry untapped. Thought about playing it tapped briefly, but the powerful Ravnica Duel will enter the battlefield untapped as Taylor falls down to 16. Spike him up. Going to knock Herrera down to 15.
How do you feel about different artworks on your lands?
Not my favorite thing, but I'm not one to judge.
It's not a big deal, but it gives you that little itch on the back of your neck.
Yeah, hair stand up a little bit. Fatal Push was the reveal off the Goblin Guide, so that means that Herrera does have an answer to the 2/2. Bloodstained Mire is the land for the turn here for Joe.
And this is an awkward spot. Like, he definitely has to get the Goblin Guide off of the board, but this is a turn where he'd normally want to be deploying a 2-drop.
Goyf, Confidant, Ooze, something of that nature.
Yeah. So we see Chris just able to kind of execute his game plan rather cleanly in this game, where it's like the Goblin Guide on 1, Burn Spell on 2, Joseph's not able to play his threat on 2, and now he might be just so far ahead that he's going to be able to burn him out.
An interesting question. How do you feel about that attack? You know your opponent has a Fatal Push. Raging Ravine was revealed, so you basically let your opponent draw a card for free.
Yeah, the kind of easy next level play there is just not attack with your guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, if you have 2 guys, go to town. Another hasty creature, get in there, but not a whole lot to be gained from that attack.
Yeah, really just giving away a free card at that point. If your opponent doesn't reveal if your opponent reveals a non-land spell, sure, I guess you get to pick up on that piece of information, but I don't want to give my Jund opponent any free cards.
Well, even a non-land spell, Joe was sitting on a fetch land.
Sure, so he gets information if he wants to shuffle or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He gets to choose whether or not he's going to draw that card.
Very true. Another fetch line here for Herrera. He's going to fall down to at least 11.
And I hope Chris isn't getting overboard on playing lands here. I probably would have stopped at 2.
Yeah, because of Liliana?
Yeah, we've seen Liliana every game so far, so those are probably still in the deck.
Speaking of which, it's not Liliana, it's Kitchen Finks, which is maybe a little bit better than Liliana in this situation. Hard to say. I mean, Finks is obviously great in the matchup, as Taylor's going to sacrifice a fetch land here, fall down to 15.
Yeah, I think Finks is super strong here. Just a little bit of life gain, adding a clock to the board. If Chris peels another Goblin Guide or something, it's just there to immediately trade with it. It's a really good spot for Kitchen Finks.
Basic Mountain, the land of choice here for Chris Taylor. See if he's got anything in play here on the end step. It looks like he does. It will be a Lightning Helix. Life totals will change 18 to 10 now as Chris will untap. And it's time for him to draw. Ensnaring Bridge is what he's found. So we saw this in game 2. We'll now see this in game number 3, and he's going to try to hide behind this and burn Herrera out.
And he looks like he's in a great spot to execute that plan.
Now, do remember, Joe Herrera does have a couple copies of Kolaghan's Command in his main deck, too. We saw 1 in game number 1, and remember that Herrera saw Ensnaring Bridge in game 2.
Yep. Joe also has a couple of Maelstrom Pulses.
Yep.
They're kind of slow and clunky. Sometimes they come out for this matchup, but it's possible he brought some of them back in. And he's got a Singleton Abrupt Decay. So he's not without answers for that card.
But now the plan for Chris Taylor is pretty simple. Hide behind the bridge and hopefully burn your opponent out, and we'll see if Joe Herrera can do anything about this. Normally we see Ensnaring Bridge and Lantern Control, more so than burn. But it has shown up, and we'll see how difficult it is for Herrera to beat. This is a Tarmogoyf. That's a Raging Ravine that we saw be drawn off of Goblin Guide. Tarmogoyf right now at 4-5. That's certainly not going to get through the bridge. And now Taylor is hiding and has picked up a copy of Skullcrack.
Very successfully hiding.
Yeah.
I mean, this game plan works on so many levels. It basically blanks all of Joe's creatures, but it also basically blanks his removal, because Chris doesn't care about his own creatures anymore. If he draws a creature, who cares?
Yep. It's all about now for Chris Taylor just drawing burn spells. As many as he can. Herrera at 10. You would think a comfortable life total for Jund to be sitting at. This is an Inquisition of Kozilek. We're going to see a response here. Lightning Helix will bring Taylor up to 21, Herrera down to 7. And perhaps we'll see Lightning Bolt as well, as Herrera's going to fall down to 4. And Inquisition will take Skullcrack. Herrera's follow-up is a Scavenging Ooze.
Okay, that's definitely a good one here.
Yeah.
It's possible that they're both just buying time. You know, one looking for burn spells, one looking for an answer to the bridge.
Yeah. We're working ourselves, excuse me, we're working ourselves into a bit of a weird one.
And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Joe use a removal spell on his own Kitchen Finks at some point this game, just to buffer his life total.
Magic players, Jordan McConnell.
Remember, Chris Taylor's only going to get to see 1 card per turn, so he's going to have to draw some good ones in a row to get this over with pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And as good as it is that he's blanking a lot of his opponent's cards, at the same time, you mentioned creatures are bad draws.
Yep.
Lands are pretty bad draws, and I would even argue a card like Deflecting Palms a pretty bad draw now, too.
Yeah. Yeah, that and the bridge is quite the number.
Yeah. Ooze is going to grow up a little bit. Up to 6 goes Herrera. He's tapping some mana. Has he found an answer? He has Fulminator Mage. So not exactly.
Well, it does a little bit here. It feeds the ooze.
Yes,
You know.
very true. Riftbolt is going to head on to suspend. Pass the turn back. Herrera will draw. We'll see if he ever does find a removal spell for that Kitchen Finks to be able to gain a little bit of life.
Yeah, this isn't normally the way these matchups play out.
Not exactly. Not exactly.
Just no one can win.
Yeah. Herrera, a couple cards in hand. You see the Raging Ravine and all those creatures, but none of them can attack because of Ensnaring Bridge.
And it seems a little ridiculous to say, but I mean, a Liliana of the Veil Ultimate potentially gets an Ensnaring Bridge off of the table.
Yes. Yes. Riftbolt's going to come off suspend. Herrera's going to sacrifice. He says, hold on, hold on. I'm going to sacrifice my Fulminator Mage, kill your land, and remove this Scavenging Ooze to gain a life. That'll work. Herrera's up to 4. He says, now you can proceed. Looks like it may have been, yeah, it was a skull crack.
Okay.
So Joe is technically at 1. Now this is a beating here for Joe because he has a Terminate that he wants to use to kill his Kitchen Finks. Skullcrack is going to undo. All right. It was going to try to undo Kitchen Finks gaining life. So Terminate is going to target Kitchen Finks twice. It'll resolve. Joe will gain some life, and then he'll take 3. He'll fall back down to 3.
Just a flurry of spells.
Yeah, it really is.
Because someone's trying to kill their own creature.
This is Hezeret. We'll take a look at the Red God now.
This is not a card I was expecting to see today.
Likewise, as Chris Taylor's going to draw and play a Boros Charm, so we don't even need to take a look at the Red God anymore because this game is over. Chris Taylor going to win this match over Joseph Herrera. Burn will take care of Jun 2-1. Thank you very much, Ensnaring Bridge.
Yeah, and the bridge was great. The burn deck got to do